Mammals, birds, fish and reptiles have disappeared since 1980. A report by the World Wildlife Foundation says this generation is the last that's able to do anything about the problem. Here, the number of hedgehogs in urban areas of the UK has plummeted over the last 16 years, with now only a quarter of the population left roaming our gardens and green areas. It's thought our increased use of pesticides means they have fewer places to live and fewer insects to eat. Hugh Warwick is here with me from the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. Good afternoon to you, Hugh. What is happening to hedgehogs? Why are we talking about such declining numbers?
I think it's absolutely fascinating. In the light of a report about the charismatic megafauna, the elephants and the rhinos and the tigers, we're looking to hedgehogs. And I really think it's important to really focus on this relatively small little mammal, because we are doing something in our environment which is hammering their populations. All over the country, their populations are falling. It's possible it's down by over 90% since the end of the Second World War. And it's down to the way we travel, it's down to the way we consume food, it's down to the way we build our houses. And so we need to start looking very carefully what we do, because we're very keen to insist other people do things to protect the wildlife in their countries. We need to protect the wildlife in our country, and the hedgehog is the nation's favourite animal. It wins the poll every single time. They are unbelievably cute. I've spent hundreds of hours out in their company, so I do know.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I was talking to colleagues in the newsroom, and none of us could remember the last time we'd seen a hedgehog. It goes back a very long way. As a child, used to see hedgehogs in the back garden and it was a real treat. But I can't remember the last time I saw a hedgehog. Perhaps we're living in more built-up areas now, for example. But what can we do to try and stop this decline?
Well, there is a campaign which has been set up by the British Hedgehog Preservation Society and the People's Trust for Endangered Species, and we call it Hedgehog Street, because you look at the hedgehog and you see how big it is and you think it doesn't need much space. But actually, we know they roam a very long way. They can easily occupy 20 different gardens in a night. And so we want people to make holes in their fences, just so they can get from garden to garden. You may have the most wildlife-friendly garden in your street, but if only birds, bees and bats can get into it, then it's not much use for hedgehogs. Make a hole. In fact, what I've done, I've actually launched a petition on change.org asking the Housing Minister, Kit Malthouse, to ensure all new builds have a hole put into the fencing, just so that hedgehogs can move through these things.
So you've effectively got a hedgehog path.
You've got a hedgehog
running
highway.
Through gardens.
And we did this, it's 4 weeks it's been up, and over 1/3 people have signed it. And what this shows is that people really do care. They really want to help hedgehogs. And we know that through the work of the Hedgehog Society, the carers around the country, the fact that people pay attention. So we can do things, we really, really can, and we really must.
What about farmers?
It's difficult. We've done most of our work looking at suburbia, because that's where hedgehogs have been most resilient. It's our rural landscape which has been transformed the most dramatically. Even though it still looks green, it is very, very different to what it used to be. Industrialised agriculture insists on the removal of competition. It insists on the removal of the insects, which actually are hedgehog food. It's averaging out around 17 different applications of biocide per crop in conventional agriculture every single year. This is something extraordinary being applied to our fields. And you only need to look back to 1962 and the work of Rachel Carson and Silent Spring. We are heading in the same direction again. We're wiping out the bottom of our ecosystem, the insect, the invertebrate life, which is the food for the hedgehogs, the bats, the birds and everything else.
And what about predators? Because there's been an increase in the number of badgers, and that is a correlation, does it, with the decline in the number of hedgehogs?
Oh, no, there's a definite link between badgers numbers increasing and hedgehog numbers decreasing. But I'm always very suspicious of people with a newfound love of hedgehogs saying we must go and kill badgers. That's a very ecologically illiterate way to dealing with wildlife management problems. Badgers compete with hedgehogs for the same food, but badgers are more omnivorous. They can eat a wide range of things. And farmers are, in this country, growing badgers like they do nowhere else in their range throughout Europe. We have a very, very favourable environment for badgers. This is not an issue to be mistakenly confused with bovine tuberculosis. It's nothing to do with that. The badger-hedgehog relationship is one which can be successful as long as they've got an environment in which they can both thrive. And that's what we're looking to try and do. The Hedgehog Street campaign has launched a booklet aimed at the farming community, showing how simple remedies can be taken, which will enable hedgehogs to be able to thrive in an environment which badgers also occupy.
And in urban environments, which you've been concentrating on just very briefly, we can make space for the hedgehogs to get through. Is there anything else we can do?
I would suggest be a little less tidy. I think there is a cult of tidiness. We can undo that cult of tidiness. Leave a patch of your garden with a log pile, with some brambles, with a few nettles. I did a fantastic piece of work that Chris Packham started, a manifesto, People's Manifesto for Wildlife. And in that, I was the Minister for Hedgerows and Verges. And in that, I say, we just got to get rid of the cult of tidiness.
Okay.
Leave your garden to go wild.
Fantastic advice, Hugh Warwick. Thank you very much indeed.